Hello, my friends. How we doing? Welcome to another episode of 30 Albums for 30 Years. I am your host, Jay Sweet. In today's episode, we're going to be checking out the album Bob Dylan's Another Side of Bob Dylan. Columbia Records. Released August 8th, 1964. Recorded June 9th of 1964. All in one day. Let's get into it. Let's check it out. All right, cats. So if you listened to my earlier episode on the times they are changing another Bob Dylan vehicle, you know my thoughts on Dylan, but I'll sum them up. Bob Dylan was the most influential American lyricist of the 1960s. The sophistication in his lyrics changed the direction of popular music forever. Now, his singing is not technically strong and was adopted from the vocal stylings of his idol Woody Guthrie, as was much of his songwriting. Now, despite his lack of range and skills as a singer in the technical sense, his voice is distinctive and it's characteristic. And remember, the best lead singers aren't often the best actual technical singers. For example, Bob Dylan would never pass an American Idol audition. As a guitarist, let's call his playing intermediate, but his way of playing serves his songs perfectly. Now, you know what often irritates me about Dylan is his sometimes amateurish way of playing the harmonica. However, on this album, it seems like he's improved on the instrument, and his harmonica interludes help to separate his lyrics and give breath to his songs. Now, just a little side note on bad harmonica playing, it's as if everyone thinks they can play that instrument, and very few actually can well. Played correctly, the harmonica can be a powerful voice, and a fantastic solo instrument connected to the roots music of America. Played poorly, it can be almost as annoying as my least favorite instrument, the bagpipes. Sorry guys, but bagpipes for me, they're rough. And I know many of you disagree, but if there was a hell for me, it would be filled with bagpipers and bad harmonica players. And it's kind of no wonder that many bars hire bagpipers on St. Patrick's Day because it can only be tolerated after many drinks. I know I might be in the minority on this. If you disagree, reach out to me. I'd love to have a discussion about it. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Let's get back to it. Let's check out the album, Another Side of Bob Dylan. All right, let's learn a little bit about this album, Another Side of Bob Dylan. Before writing the record, Dylan embarked on a 20-day trip in a station wagon with a friend in search of inspiration and folk tales. The idea was to stop along the way, talk to as many people as possible, and gather stories. During the trip, the Beatles arrived in America. Dylan heard them on the radio and bugged out. He was amazed by their music's more advanced harmonies, song structures, and overall sophistication. He can hear that they were moving in a new, more creative direction, and he wanted to be part of that. Meanwhile, the Beatles had become deeply inspired by Bob Dylan and wanted to add more meaningful lyrics into their music. So Dylan inspired the Beatles then inspired Bob Dylan. Around the time he wrote the album, Dylan was going through some stuff. He was apparently having an affair with folk artist Joan Baez, and his girlfriend Suze Rotolo had enough of his cheating ways and broke things off. Dylan then began experimenting with LSD and also started to play the electric guitar. In February 1964, Dylan went to Europe where he met Nico, an angelic German model who later joined the Velvet Underground. When he returned to New York, he began to write feverishly, and the album Another Side of Bob Dylan was born. The record was intended to be a new direction for Dylan, as his songs now dealt more with personal reflections and less with activism. It's a transitional album, leading to his next release, Bringing It All Back Home, 1965, where Dylan would piss off many of his folky disciples by playing electric music. In the US, Another Side of Bob Dylan charted at only number 43, but eventually went gold. In the UK, it peaked at number 8. What is most remarkable is that Dylan recorded the entire record in only one day. All right, time to drop the needle on track number 1 from side number 1. And the song is All I Really Want to Do, which is essentially a simple listing of everything Bob Dylan doesn't want to do in a relationship, likely with a woman, or possibly with his audience. Bob Dylan's yodeling on this tune shows the influence of rambling Jack Elliott and Hank Williams. He was listening to them both a lot at this period. In the last verse, Bob Dylan can be heard laughing as he cracks himself up a bit. He found himself funny, I guess. When it comes to music, the song is about as simple as it gets. The tune was covered by the Byrds and Cher, who both had hits with All I Really Want to Do. Track number 2 is Black Crow Blues, which is different for Dylan because he plays the piano on it. Remember, he's mostly a guitar player. And it's the first recording in which he plays the piano. Otherwise, the song is just a standard 12-bar blues inspired by the musicians of the Mississippi Delta. Track number 3 is Spanish Harlem Incident, which is a portrayal of a gypsy girl. I know that's a pejorative term now, but that's the word he uses, gypsy, living in New York, with whom the author takes notice, possibly romantically. When questioned about the song's meaning, Dylan claimed, "I have no idea." Now, he had a way of being cheeky and standoffish at times with his responses. The Byrds and Dion both covered this song, Spanish Harlem Incident. Track number 4 is Chimes of Freedom, which is a 7+ minute long exploration. The lyrics are a bit cryptic, but many critics and writers believe it to be Dylan's response to the John F. Kennedy assassination. Dylan sings about thunderstorms, the oppressed and the less fortunate on this one, and more intelligent men than me have tried to find deeper meaning in the lyrics. Sometimes it's hard to know precisely what Dylan meant in his lyrics, but you can tell that they were somehow important. Now, part of the joy of listening to Dylan is trying to unlock the meaning and the mind of one of the great voices of a generation. Now, as I've mentioned before, I sincerely appreciate Bob Dylan. I like his work very much, but his harmonica playing often irritates me. And if the Chimes of Freedom sounds anything like his harmonica playing on this song, I would rather not be free. Track number 5 is I Shall Be Free, number 10, which sounds a lot like Woody Guthrie and derives from Leadbelly's We Shall Be Free, recorded with Guthrie and Sonny Terry in 1944. The song is essentially a sequel to I Shall Be Free from Bob Dylan's first record. The tune is presented as a stream of consciousness dealing with many Dylanisms. Bob Dylan talks more than he sings on this one, and it may be a stretch, but a connection between Dylan's brand of folk can somehow connect to rap and hip-hop. I'll explain. The similarities between his brand of folk and hip-hop stem from the vocal line, which is often limited in terms of melodic shape, and the lyrics overshadow the technicality of the music simple. In the song, Dylan mentions 2 newsworthy 1964 figures: Cassius Clay, otherwise known as Muhammad Ali, and the ultra-conservative former U.S. Senator and 1965 presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. Now, this song is not one of my favorites, and honestly, I kind of wish I were free from his harmonica playing on this one. Again, it's rough. Later on, he plays better. During the final lyric, Dylan speaks the truth by saying, You are probably wondering what this song is about. But once again, he gives no answer. Now remember, he was using LSD at the time. The final track of side number 1 is To Ramona, which was likely written with folk singer Joan Baez in mind. In her autobiography, Baez explains that Dylan sometimes called her Ramona. The song is a cowboy song in which the author reflects upon Ramona's phobias and insecurities as she plans on returning south. Throughout, the narrator appears to be offering Ramona life advice. The song shows a shift in Dylan as a songwriter, and unlike songs like I Shall Be Free No. 10 and Chimes of Freedom, the lyrics are less abstract and more literal. To Ramona. All right, you still with me? Still doing all right? Still having fun? Good. Let's flip the record. Drop the needle on side number 2, track number 1. Motor Psycho Nightmare. Ooh, scary stuff. This is a storytelling song about a rough-looking traveler who comes upon a farmhouse. The farmer is not too pleased with the visitor and threatens to shoot him, but then reluctantly decides to provide shelter to the traveler under the conditions that he doesn't, number 1, touch his daughter Rita, and that number 2, in the morning he milks his cows. Of course, he breaks both rules. At least that's my interpretation. So he looks to get chased out of the farmhouse without milking the cows in the morning, and tells the farmer, who's a very patriotic kind of a guy, that he likes Fidel Castro, and he does this to piss him off. It's kind of a lousy plan. The farmer chases him out with the gun. It seems as though the traveler gets away. And the title and the lyrics pay tribute to the Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho. The next track is a favorite amongst Dylan fans and is one of my personal favorites on the album. It's called My Back Pages. In the song's chorus, Bob Dylan admits, "I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now." And many feel that the song and those lyrics are announcing his rebirth, and that he no longer wants to be a vessel for political movements and protest songs. Bob Dylan started to doubt the preaching quality of his earlier works. Now, musically, My Back Pages sounds like many of his other songs. It's a signature tune on the album, and it shows that Dylan was looking for a creative transition. Also, his harmonica playing is pretty decent on this one. Check it out. My Back Pages. The third track on side number 2 is I Don't Believe You. She Acts Like We Never Have Met. The song is about a one-night stand and the emotional disconnection the woman shows afterwards. Dylan plays, again, I'm going to say it, some pretty solid harmonica on this one. And once again, Bob Dylan cracks himself up on this recording. Now, I know I often tell corny jokes, but I really don't think Bob Dylan's that funny. But he often laughs at himself. Anyway, I Don't Believe You, She Acts Like We Never Have Met, is one of his most underrated songs. Check it out and enjoy it. Track number 4 of side 2 is Ballad in Plain D, which is an 8-minute long song that deals with the challenges he had with Suze Rotolo, his ex-girlfriend, and her family. In the song, he even calls her sister a parasite. Now, Rotolo said she was never hurt by the song. And Dylan later showed regret for the recording of the tune and said the following: "Oh yeah, that one? I look back and say, I must have been a real schmuck to write that. I look back at that particular one and say, of all the songs I've written, maybe I could have left that alone. I'm glad he didn't. It's a good song." The final song of the record might be the best. It Ain't Me, Babe. It Ain't Me, Babe is another song showing complete honesty and vulnerability over his breakup with Rotolo. The piece shows Dylan's maturity as a songwriter who can now write timeless and relatable material without being too political or preachy. The Turtles and Johnny Cash both reinterpreted this song and had hits. It's a beautiful song that may offer Dylan's best vocal performance to date. It Ain't Me, Babe. All right, guess what? We did it. We made it to the end of the record, and we are better for it. So lift the needle, carefully remove the record, put it away. Don't just leave it hanging around. It's a good one. Put it away. Don't be lazy. All right, let's talk. In conclusion, another side of Bob Dylan is one of the songwriter's most personal and thought-provoking works. Dylan is a complicated guy who sometimes would come off as charming and at other times defiant and standoffish. His words and music always seemed necessary. And despite his unique lack of technical musicality, there's a mystery to the man and his music and his persona, and it makes us want to understand all sides of Bob Dylan and his intentions. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope you're learning something. I certainly am by doing this. I hope you're not tired of my voice, because there's a lot more shows to come, and we've already done quite a few as well. So if you're interested in hearing past episodes or seeing what's coming up in the future, go to 30albumsfor30years.com, or you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook. We're there as well. I also have a book, A History of American Music, 1750 through 1950, an origin story, and that's available through Kendall Hunt Publishing. Now, if you can, stick around. There's some bonus material, and together, let's keep this music alive. All right, so you decided to hang around, huh? I mean, everyone likes a bonus, right? Well, for these bonus sections, what I normally do is I take a song from the album and I reinterpret it. These are like little demos that I do at home. For this one, I did It Ain't Me, Babe, one of my favorite songs from this record. It's kind of a little different spin on it. I hope you enjoy it. Here's my take on It Ain't Me, Babe.